Representative and the 38th District State Representative. Both areas have two candidates. Both incumbents are here and their opponent. Just a little housekeeping. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. I'll be sitting right over here. At 4 minutes I will stand to allow you 1 minute to close, and at 5 minutes I will pull you off the podium. Hopefully I don't have to embarrass anybody. And then after you come up to speak, if you would, I have 2 seats next to the podium. I ask you to have a seat right after the 37th, which will be the first to speak. We will have a Q&A before the 38th District starts to speak. So with that being said, we will start with our first, well, let me go a little more into this. On the 37th District State Representative, we have the incumbent, Christina Rogner, who's here to speak to us, and her opponent is David Warhatch. And please welcome our first candidate to speak, which will be Christine Rogner.
Thank you so much for coming today. I am State Representative Christina Rogner, and I'd like to thank the Nordonia Hills Rotary for hosting this lunch and this event today and taking the time to get to know the candidates. Let me tell you a bit about my background, about what I believe, and what we've done down in Columbus. So I wasn't always in politics. I was originally a mechanical engineer. I used to rebuild power plants, turbines, and generators with Westinghouse Power Generation. I'd travel across the country to do that. Did that for a little over 4 years, and then I went back to get my master's, my MBA from the Wharton School of Business. And from there I went to McKinsey & Company and served as a management consultant for 5 years. Worked in the United States as well as over in Europe, serving these clients, helping to solve their very real business issues. I got married to my husband Eric, and then we had 3 daughters. We have Catherine, Caitlin, and Christine. They're all school-aged children. We live in Hudson. So my entrance into elected office began with Hudson City Council. I ran in 2005 on the platform of fiscal responsibility and openness in government, transparency, and I had no prior experience in politics before that. I mean, I would vote, I paid my taxes, and that was about it. But in 2005, oh, and as a side note, I turned in my petitions to run for city council, and then shortly thereafter I found out I was expecting my 3rd child, and my 3rd child was born on election day. That was quite a day. I did not work the polls that day, but we did win, so that was good. And then we immediately got to work, and we concentrated on efficiency in government. So if someone would leave a department, we would say, do you really need to hire another person, or can we operate more efficiently? More often than not, the answer was we can operate more efficiently. So we ended up reducing the budget in Hudson by 10%. This is back in 2006, and that was good because in 2008, the economy crashed, but Hudson was in very strong fiscal shape. My 4-year term ended on Hudson. I ran again in 2009 and was reelected. In 2010, I was elected to be your state representative, and then again in 2012. So I've been in 4 previous elections, and I've won every single time, because I stick to my message of being a fiscal conservative. I believe in more limited and efficient government. I believe in terms of when it comes to job creation, that it's not government that creates the jobs, but rather it's the private sector that needs to flourish, and that the government can set the stage it's inviting to business. That means making sure we have a favorable tax climate, that we have common sense regulatory reform, we have an able and ready workforce, and low price energy. So I mean, there's a lot of things that contribute to that environment that makes it inviting to business, and then the private sector will do their thing, and jobs will be created. We are actually seeing that happen now. So let me tell you about the results, because I'm very, very proud of these. When I took office in January 2011 in the State House, we were facing an $8 billion budget deficit, and the money wasn't there. We were able to balance that budget without raising taxes, and in fact, we eliminated the Ohio estate tax in that time, which was quite an accomplishment, I believe. Also, we've also reduced income taxes by 10%, so we've done some really good things. The overall tax burden is down substantially in the state of Ohio. The rainy day fund, when we took office, it had 89 cents in it. That's it, 89 cents. And that is the money that we need to put aside for when we face hard times. But with some strong fiscal management, now we have $1.5 billion in the rainy day fund. The credit agencies are recognizing this. They look at Ohio and we were negative. But now we have been upgraded to stable. And that happened the same time that the United States was downgraded. So some unemployment, when we took office in January of 2011, unemployment was over 9% in Ohio, and now it's 5.7. So this is a rising tide, folks, that's lifting all ships. I mean, you might hear some say that it just favors, helps the wealthy, but quite the contrary, it's helping everyone. And I have been, just really pleased to be a part of this turnaround. I've been honored to serve as your state representative to part of you guys. I represent Macedonia and Northfield. So those of you that live in Sagamore Hills, you'll hear from your state representative shortly. But I represent from northern part of Cuyahoga Falls, Stowe, Hudson, Macedonia, Twinsburg, and over here into Northfield, and a few other surrounding smaller communities. It's been a privilege to serve you. I host regular office hours. I love talking to people and helping to solve very real business issues. And I just want to thank you again for your time and your consideration. And if you'd like to find out more, please go to ChristinaDaileyRogner.com, and I respectfully request your vote. Thanks for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Christina. The opponent running for office is David Warhatch. David?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am David Warhatch, and I'm running for the State House of Representatives. I believe I will be your next state representative in the 37th Ohio House District once all the votes are cast on November the 4th. I thank the Rotary for calling this meeting together so that you have an opportunity to inform yourselves and then to tell your friends and neighbors and relatives and co-workers about what you've learned today about what the candidates stand for and why we think we are the better qualified candidate to run and represent you in the 37th Ohio House District for the next 2 years. I'm also happy to see my longtime friend Jeff Cole here. He's the executive director of the Cable 9, or what do we call it now, Cable 9 still, system. I was the chairman of the Cable Television Consortium whenever I was a Hudson Township trustee many years ago. And I'm glad to see him here and that we're having coverage for this particular candidate's event. I'm an attorney. I have been an attorney for 35 years and I currently maintain a practice in Stowe. I live in Hudson, so that makes me an oppressed minority. I'm a Democrat. The Democrat in Hudson is not very prevalent. But fortunately, the district that we're running in is not just Hudson, or else there'd be no shot for a Democrat. And the reason I'm running is because of the policies of the state of Ohio that have been enacted by the Republicans in the last 4 years, and particularly in the last 2 years, that hurt ordinary working families. I believe that the Republicans have been working against the interests of working families. And I believe that that's probably why I've gotten the Akron Beacon Journal endorsement over the incumbent who's been in office for 2 terms. And I've got the endorsement of law enforcement with the FOP, a whole raft of educator organizations, various advocates for elderly citizens, a number of labor organizations and other advocates for working families, a number of elected officials, and a number of other community active organizations. Why would they all line up against the incumbent Republican? I think it's for one very important reason. My message is about putting people first, not just the wealthy few, but all people. What's been happening lately is that the legislature has decided to shift the burden of taxation from the state to the local governments. Now, my opponent gets $60,000 a year plus to be your legislator. She wants to have her contract renewed for 2 more years. That's another $125,000 in salary. If we were to interview her we'd have to debate whether or not she should be rehired for another 2 years. What she stands for are policies that favor the wealthiest 5% of Ohioans at the expense of 95% of Ohioans. The wealthiest 5% get $1.5 billion, that's with a B, $1.5 billion of tax breaks that the rest of us can't get. And 95% of us then pay for it by having to pay higher property taxes to the tune of 12.5% on the voted millage, ramping up over the next 5 years, and then become permanently a part of Ohio's tax landscape thereafter. This is wrong. I represent individuals victimized in the work setting in all areas of employment law except for late workers' compensation. I know every day how the policies of the Republicans have hurt working families in this district and all across the state. We need to fix this, and we need to fix it now. There's a growing problem here in Ohio, aging. If you look at the map right now, 12 of the 88 counties have populations with 20% of 60 years of age or older. In 15 years, if we don't stop the exodus of our youth that are going elsewhere because they can't find the jobs here, we'll end up with at least 81 of the 88 counties with people with 20% of the population being 60 years of age or older. That's why those that advocate the elderly, that advocate home health care, that advocate for hospice, do know that I'm the candidate that needs to be supported. I would be a Republican if this were still the party of Lincoln. The party of Lincoln is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not of the few, and by the few, and for the few. It's time that we step up and put people first, and I'm asking you to join me. I'm David Warhatch. You can find out more about me at davidforohio.com. That's davidforohio.com, or call my campaign headquarters, 330-615-OH37, because we intend that to be our district office after I'm elected. 330-615-6437. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open to the floor for Q&A. We have 6 minutes before we need to go on. So do we have any questions? And we're going to go in reverse order. So David, you'll be the first to respond. If you can make your response short to give Christina time and move on to some other questions. Yes, John.
Right now, Ohio universities graduate many people in education. Many people that I know from my church have gone to Kentucky, they've gone to North Carolina, they've gone to Nevada. Others that I know, our church has a college ministry in Kent, Ohio, are unemployed, not able to work in their field. Yet, there's thousands and thousands of jobs in Northeast Ohio that can't be filled because the education system isn't producing those graduates. How would you change that?
Well, one of the things that I have represented vocational school districts superintendent in the past, and I've gotten a great education with respect to the undervaluing of education for skilled crafts in the state. I think we have a problem that stems from the state's underfunding, undervaluing public education at all levels. The issue here is really one of looking back 19 years ago when the state Supreme Court said we should not be focusing principally on the property tax in order to fund public schools. And yet since that time, 19 years later, the real growth, adjusted for inflation, is stagnant in terms of investing in Ohio's future and providing the climate for individuals to gain what they need to gain in terms of skills and knowledge to be able to fill those jobs. But I think there's another problem that's missing. For example, down in southwest Ohio, there are a number of people who have been displaced by the exodus of some industries in southwest Ohio. And yet there are jobs in northeast Ohio could be filled by those individuals. They can't figure out, there's no way apparently, the state legislature has figured out how to move people to those other positions if they want to recruit from within the state. We pay those individuals unemployment compensation. What if we would take the money we're paying them on unemployment compensation, instead provide them temporary housing somewhere in the else in the state, so they don't have to worry about their mortgage or rent at home? They could go to the place in Northeast Ohio where the jobs are, see if it in fact is going to work for them, and then move their families out elsewhere if they that way if they do. Otherwise, it's the same amount of money we'd be spending anyway for unemployment compensation, and we could put somebody on the payroll, get income tax revenues out of it, and probably solve some of the job problems that you just described. I also have an issue about, I don't want to take up all the time, so. I have an issue about how you can fix the problem of $7.7 billion in tax revenues going out the door in the South, but I'll get to that in my next question, I hope.
Thank you for the question. So manufacturing, workforce development, as I mentioned when I was talking about we need to set a stage, it's inviting to business. I talked about taxes and regulatory reform, we talked about energy, but having the labor market, making sure we have the skill set in our workers that match the needs, the demands of Ohio businesses, that is a priority, and that has been a priority for us in the General Assembly and in the administration for the last 4 years. In fact, just last week, I visited a business, it's called Sadler Corporation, and they're a machine shop. And it was in conjunction with the Treasurer's Office. They have this program called Ohio Strong, which recognizes folks that are in the trades, work with their hands, machining. And so we recognize 3 of the workers there, just basically to highlight that, you know what, these are good jobs, they're high-paying jobs, they're in demand, you can make products, and there's a lot of job satisfaction and pay that goes with it. So I think it's something that we have been and continue to work on as a legislature, but also just in terms of changing the culture. I think that we all can help with that. There are some folks that are right for college, and they should go there, and they will land jobs that require the college degree. But I think there are others that work very well with their hands. They've been very blessed to have these gifts and talents that I don't have, but I used to see my brother put a chainsaw back together. He can do it with his eyes closed. I can't do that. But I think those skills should be recognized and rewarded, and we should do our best to try to match those up. When it comes to on education on the side, I am certainly passionate about education. I was just yesterday in the Stowe Public Schools. I visit the 4th grade classes, and we talk about government, and I enjoy meeting with them, so that's just as a side. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. At this time, we need to move on. Questions will have to hold. We need to close. So thank you for coming out. Well, we actually need to move on.
Oh,
yeah, we have 15 minutes, and we need to be out of here by 1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to page 2. We have our 38th District State Representatives here. The incumbent is Marilyn Slaby, and the opponent is Tim Crawford. We will be starting with Tim Crawford. Please come on up.
I want to thank the Rotary. It's always good to be at a service organizations meeting, considering I've been a 30-year member of sort of the other side of that service group, the Kiwanis, and been very active in the Kiwanis, twice past president. Also been a 30-year member of the Salvation Army boards, not only here in Summit County, but in Barberton. And I've also been a 20-year member of the Summit County Council. So I know the legislative experience and what it takes to get something through the legislative experience. I think the biggest thing that I see, there's a couple of issues that I'd like to touch on in considering that this is probably, you have a lot of commercial and business people here. But the first thing is the public school funding. Public school funding is probably one of the most hot topics that we have currently in the state. And it's mainly because of what's going on with the bleeding of the money into the charter school systems. That bleeding must stop. We cannot keep going to the taxpayers and asking for money. And we are educating our children. And as previously mentioned, we're trying to keep those children in Ohio with good jobs. whether it be vocational jobs or whether it be with the good public school system. Currently, here in Nordonia, whether you know it or not, your local tax dollars, $350,000, go with students that leave the public school system and go in to the private school system. This is not state money. This is your local tax dollars going to private and public, or to the charter schools, away from your public schools that you vote that money for. We need to stop that. If people want to send their children to charter schools, which most of the students actually leaving the public school system don't realize that those charter schools are actually a D-rated school. So they're lower on rating than the public school system that you have right here in this area. And of course, the Nordonia school systems, you should be very proud of that because it is a very, very good school system. The other thing that I like to always point out is, especially to business people, certainly we've done away with the inheritance tax, we've done away with the personal property tax, but lo and behold, we create a commercial activity tax. Now, if you've ever been involved in trying to get business into a county, or as I said, I've been on county council for a long time, the first thing they ask you is, what's this commercial activity tax? Why am I being taxed on my gross income? Well, this has been a concept that has come up in the past few years. Ultimately, I really think we need to do away with that tax. I don't think that's going to become reality because that has become one of the mainstays within the income brackets or the income of the state budget. But I do think with the cutting, and if you talk to any of your local political people, your local elected officials, they will talk about the revenue that has been cut off from the state. This commercial activity tax needs to have a direct percentage directly sent back to each local community that it's collected in. Whether it be a township, whether it be a city, whether it be a village, a percentage of that tax, and most of you are probably business people in this area, joining Rotary, are probably paying that commercial activity tax. I don't know how many of you are actually in the 38th district, and probably the Channel 9 viewing area, there's probably more people within the 38th district. The 38th district is one of those districts that was created, and you talk about gerrymandering, but it's a tremendous district because I love the diversification in it. It goes from Sagamore Hills all the way down to Beach City and Wilmot. In the southern part of it, you get a lot of agricultural people. My family has been involved in agriculture since 1879. I currently still own the cider mill that my family did for that many years, and I'm very proud of it. Just want to say thank you not only to the Rotary, but also to Channel 9 and the viewing audience. Thank you very much. Tim Crawford.
Okay, our next candidate for the 38th district is Marilyn Slavey. Marilyn?
Thank you very much for inviting us, and we're always glad to be here. We've been here many times, and thank you very much. I am Marilyn Slavey. I am your state representative, and I'm a teacher by profession, and I've owned my own business, small business. I know the rewards of owning a business. I also know the problems and the frustrations of owning your own business. So with this, I was a state rep back in 2004, and when the governor appointed my husband, who was the state rep, to be commissioner of the Public Utilities Commission, he said, no, by the way, your wife can take your place. Well, that was a natural. I had been here before, so therefore it was just a natural for me to go in. It's a good learning experience. It sometimes takes 6 months or more for new people to come in to the House and know exactly everything that's going on there. I have voted for the legislation that cut the personal income taxes by 10%, so you have more money in your pocket. That is fantastic. the more money you have in your pocket, the more you're going to spend. And when you spend money, you help the economy. And when you help the economy, we produce more jobs and create more jobs. That is the circle. You get the money in your pocket, you go spend it, make the economy good, and the jobs come. I have voted to cut taxes for small businesses so that owners can reinvest the money they save into their jobs, and when they invest it into their jobs, they will have more, creating more jobs. I've co-sponsored legislation with both Republicans and Democrats, and I've had many Democrats who have jumped on bills I have had. As the only educator in the Republican caucus, I am passionate about education. This, to me, is my thing, to try to make sure that all of the members understand the problems we have in school today. I will hear different people say something about we need to do this in the schools, and I'll say, wait a minute, it's been 40, 50 years since you've been in the schools. We don't do things in schools that way anymore. I know that not all children are going to go to college. To me, I want every child in Ohio to receive the best possible education possible for them. That means to lift them up to a point they can go to college. Today, this past year, 40% of the graduates of Ohio schools going to public colleges had to take remedial courses. We can't let this continue. Now, the schools in my district are all schools of excellence, but we have a lot of schools in Ohio that are not. And so we have to make sure that we're bringing up those schools so that those students have as much of a chance in this world. I want all school children to graduate. But as I say, I know they will not all go to college. So we have to start bringing in vocational classes. A lot of schools already have vocational classes, but we need to bring in technology. Manufacturers call me every week and tell me, I have all of this workforce, but nobody can run the machines because they're all done by computer and the kids aren't trained. Let's get these high school kids trained. Also, we need to start doing some retraining of the workforce so that they can take over and do this. Not only in the machines and manufacturers, cars. Today they can't work on cars because it's all computerized. Let's train these kids that are not going to college to be able to work on this. I've been endorsed by many of the areas, Akron Beacon Journal, Chamber of Commerce, NFIB, Iowa Restaurant Association, Society of CPAs, Manufacturing Association, Farm Bureau, NRA, Buckeye Farm, Firearms Association, Ohio Right to Life, and the International Union of Operating Engineers. So we're ready to go, and I thank you very much for having us.
Okay, we have 5 minutes for Q&A. Do we have a question for our first candidate, Marilyn?
Can I have a question?
Yes.
Because nobody else wants to do that. Thanks for complimenting the schools. We do a fantastic job. The third highest rated district in the county with the second lowest tax rate, and we do lose a lot of money to charter schools, which is a shame. But my question is about the Common Core. The Nordonia schools have spent several years implementing the Common Core. Lots and lots of money, lots and lots of time, and we're getting great reports from that. Again, our highest achievement ever. Our teachers are thrilled with it, and our kids are learning and achieving better than they ever have. Yet there seems to be some fear and scare tactics and some innuendo and rumors about what the evilness of the Common Core, when we all know that's not true. So I'm curious about your take on the Common Core, and if that bill comes out to where you would get a vote to repeal it, would you do so?
I would not repeal it. One of the things, we have to get these standards up. And as he said, in his schools, they know these standards are working. We have to get the standards up in the lower schools so we can bring them up, so those students have a chance. There are some problems with Common Core. One of the big ones is all the testing that Common Core requires. We need to eliminate some of all of that testing. We have the state testing we need to do. But to me, I would not repeal Common Core because we have to have standards. We used to try to have the Ohio Education Department make standards for all schools. They didn't do it, so when Common Core came along, I was not there. I didn't have anything to do with Common Core. It was not a state voted on issue. It came in, we've got to get all schools on board, and as he said, it works.
I too would not vote to repeal the whole Common Core. But with the areas that I think that really need a strong look at is with this Common Core, you're evaluating teachers based upon the one day that their students walk in and take a test. You're also evaluating those students for future achievement, which I think is something that also maybe needs to also be removed. Where the Common Core, I believe, is going to really do a good comparison is it's going to be able to compare Ohio with Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, all our neighboring schools. So from that standpoint, and for years we've had nationwide testing in one form or another to compare states with other states. So finally, unfortunately though, going back to looking at the state and what they did, they voted this in, but there again, then they didn't fund any school system, and some of the school systems are having a very hard struggle to meet all these qualifications. So there again, it was a state, in a national movement with imposing these regulations, but with no funding whatsoever. The other thing, though, also in the public school systems, which we are not getting into too heavy, but also the state is imposing safety standards for schools. And we're hearing a lot of that because of some of the activities that are going on within the school system. But there again, those safety standards are not being funded. So there again, they have to look towards the taxpayer to meet the safety standards within the school. And as I met with most of the superintendents up and down through this school system of the 38th district, that was one of the things that they brought up, was the expense of the Common Core and, of course, expense of safety systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to thank the 38th District and the 37th District for coming in, and I'd like to turn the meeting back over to our President, Mr. Klingenberg.